Well, Auburn lost the commitment, and Juju Lewis's high school teammate went to USC.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's Recruiting Thursday, and our recruiting coverage here at the Locked On Podcast Network is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates for your posting for free. Go to linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Brian Smith, Locked On Recruiting Insider, also Auburn recruiting writer at auburndaily.com, hanging out with us for this Recruiting Thursday. Brian, yesterday, Wednesday was not good for Auburn recruiting. Let's just be very clear and upfront about that, and we'll discuss all that. And going into the day, like Monday and Tuesday, and even Wednesday morning before news started happening, the vibes felt a little off. They felt a little off regarding Juju Lewis and kind of Auburn's footing with some of these other players. So we'll start with Carde Smith, the 4-star offensive tackle who you're very high on. You think he has SEC offensive tackle upside. He flips from Auburn, or he doesn't flip, he decommits, but it's come following a visit to USC, which is going to be a theme of this show over the next 20 minutes or so. But not good, not a great situation, losing a potential starting caliber offensive tackle in your class.
Look, Auburn had 5 linemen. Carde decommits. They still have one of the best players in the country at offensive tackle committed. They've got other guys like Tavares Dice, I think, is right up there too. They're still good there. Mm-hmm. You and I have said it numerous times. They're trying to make up for past transgressions here. We both agree they could take 6 in this class if it's the right 6. Mm-hmm. They still could. Like if they get Andrew Babel, okay, yeah, you're gonna take that kid, stuff like that. But you don't like losing the in-state kid, especially if he ends up, and it sounds like he might, to the school that Juju Lewis is technically committed to right now. In addition to Shamar Arnaud, in case you didn't know, just committed to SC as well. And oh, by the way, he is Juju's teammate. So this is a weird trend within 24 hours. It really is.
Yeah, it felt like Auburn had all the momentum, and he does the Colorado visit, Juju Lewis does. And then, I don't think the visit was necessarily about Colorado, but earlier in the week, he was in LA for the Elite 11. You got to assume USC spent a lot of time with him there too. But ever since all that happened, it seems like Auburn's footing in the race for Juju Lewis, the footing has slipped. And so how do they respond? We'll see. It's the dead period coming up, or it may already be here. I'm not exactly sure. It just started. So you can't do a whole lot now, but to me, this does add more pressure on Big Cat Weekend the end of next month.
I believe it ends about a week before Big Cat, and then kids can kind of go back out again. Coaches will be done with their vacations and all that like they do every year. And the coaches are getting ready for Big Cat, and then there are only 2 things they're worried about, fall camp. Mm-hmm. I would have guessed it is paramount to get Juju back on campus either for Big Cat or one of the first practices or both. How that works out, I don't know, because his schedule – because he's trying to enroll early and all this other stuff is ridiculous.
Right. Yeah.
I do not want to trade places with Juju on that front, by the way. It's not fun taking extra classes.
Sure.
So his time's going to be really limited.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn has to get him back on campus sooner than later. I don't like the vibe either, but I also know recruiting goes with all kinds of ebbs and flows. What does Auburn do to get this back on? Is it a negotiation thing with NIL? Is it something with the coaching staff? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But everything I read made it sound like Colorado actually made a dent. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
I don't think so.
That's what I said too, because I'm like, look, they're terrible. They are terrible. I'm sorry. They are. But take it however you like.
Yeah, regardless, it does seem like USC has kind of separated themselves from Auburn again. We'll see. And look, nothing's happened other than the decommitment, which that doesn't feel good. But it still just seems like the general vibes are off on all this. So let's talk about Carde Smith leaving. Do you think this was just purely he liked what happened at USC and he wants to play with a guy like Juju? Or do you think it's just he liked USC and that's his own isolated thing? Do you think it's, oh my goodness, Auburn keeps adding so many offensive linemen and I kind of want to be able to stand out and be in a situation where there's less competition down the road? What do you think ultimately went into this decision for him?
I'm going to guess that USC is trying to take the buddies of a certain Juju Lewis to Los Angeles.
Okay.
I have a feeling they upped their NIL game. USC's money is utterly ridiculous.
Oh, that's real money. No doubt.
Yeah, I mean, Lincoln's contract's over $100 million. So use your imagination. All the stars out there, follow them, donate, and all that. So money is not an issue. And they do need line help. Legitimately, they need line help. That's not their strength. Skill spots, USC's good to go.
Sure.
So he's got a chance to play. I think any kid that they were recruiting that Auburn either has or had a good shot at, they're going to make a little extra. You can't beat the competition straight up, just take away from them in other ways. That's my guess. But I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
Like, kids from Mobile just don't go to USC. They just don't. It's not a fit. It's not.
But they call. And you're really, really good. I think you listen. And it sounds like they did. So we'll see what the next steps are with this. Auburn still, like you said, has talented offensive linemen committed. If you would have told me going into this cycle that your top tackles going into it were Broderick Scholl and Tavares Dice, I would have still been over the moon, ecstatic.
And you should be.
Yeah. And so it's not like Auburn is in a rough spot, but we literally did this on the show yesterday, Brian, where we talked about how important offensive line was. It was the most crucial position group in this class, and they're nailing it.
Sure.
You need bodies. And so, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, losing Carde Smith stinks. Like, it's not a great feeling, even though you do still have solid offensive linemen still committed to you.
Malachi Goodman and Andrew Babaloa, they need to get one of those two.
Okay.
Because they're elite players that can both play tackle. You cannot teach 300 pounds with dancing bare feet.
What do you think the lean is for those two guys? Michigan,
Auburn, and Stanford for Babaloa. He's an elite academic kid. Stanford gives me pause.
Stanford's kind of been the main one that keeps popping up, it seems like.
Yeah. He's an elite academic kid, and that school obviously is world-renowned.
Sure.
Watch out for them. As far as the other kid, good, like his visit list is crazy. Georgia was the rumored school at one point, Penn State, Auburn. I have no idea where he's going. But Auburn had a good visit with him, and they're in the running. And we, again, cannot stress this enough. The Tigers need at least 5 linemen in this class. He knows that. Auburn's pitching that. We'll see. He's out of New Jersey. Again, elite recruit. He's a top 100, 150 kid. He can play pretty early at most schools.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Offensive line recruiting, it's still good. They're still in a good spot, but they were in a great spot. And I don't think it's great anymore because you lost a potential starting caliber SEC tackle. And that kind of comes with the territory of what Auburn's dealing with. So we'll see. Yeah, the vibes just seem off. And I want to talk more about Juju Lewis. And I think there's a little bit of a misconception with Juju Lewis's recruitment that I keep seeing Auburn people talk about. That's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, whether it's for sporting events, whether it's for concerts, the theater, anything. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. And prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. So you kind of just get a wild hair and you're fired up about some Braves baseball or wherever you live throughout this great country of ours. Download the Game Time app and you can see all sorts of flash deals and you're really not going to find anywhere that prices tickets better than Game Time. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Brian, just kind of following up with the Juju Lewis saga here. There's so many Auburn fans out there saying like he's not worth the money because we don't know what that exact number is, but some of the numbers and the rumors that are being thrown around are very high, rightfully so. 5-star quarterback, big deal. You've talked about how good of a player he is. I mean, he changes the program. They're saying he's not worth it financially from an NIL point of view. And it may not be when you just look at the specific player, but the overall impact of what he brings, I think it makes certain flips a lot less likely to happen. I think it's tremendous marketing for your program and just the amount of folks that want to come and play with a guy like Juju Lewis. To me, it seems worth it.
It's the totality. You're absolutely correct, Zach. Here's the deal. You're going to get more receivers. You're going to get more tight ends like Hollis Davidson. You want to bring him back into the fold? Oh, Julian Lewis committed today. Like if you calls him up and says, by the way, Julian just committed to me 5 minutes ago. Yeah, that's going to matter. If it doesn't, you may not want that kid. You know what I mean? Like that should matter.
Right.
And then offensive linemen. You call Andrew Babaloa, look, we just got the best passing quarterback in the country. We want you to be his left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not a pitch that you like, okay, goodbye. Yeah. You know what I mean? These things matter. And even defensive kids, they want to go play for a school that's going to score so they don't have to quite do as much. They want to win.
Yeah.
And then your point about marketing is true. Can you imagine how many times?
Can you imagine?
3-4 years he plays at Auburn, you would text me and say, hey, press conference, get there a little early. Julian's going to be there today. We got to get us, like those things matter. All that stuff matters.
Yeah.
You have to have a quarterback that's a big time player. Like since 2018, that's when college football really changed with Blondie at Clemson. Every team that wins it has not just a good quarterback, it's an NFL quarterback. Football has changed since that year. You don't have one, you're not sniffing a title.
Yeah, and this isn't the same thing, but I do think it's similar. Like, look at what Arch Manning has done at Texas, and he hasn't even played yet. But, I mean, you talk about just the notoriety and the prestige, not that Texas needed it, but the attention. I mean, everything. It changes how your program is viewed when you get a quarterback like that. And Juju's in that category, right? That's not a crazy thing to say. He's in that tier.
Absolutely. I knew about Juju when he was in 7th grade.
Yeah.
I hear about kids going into 9th grade quite often, 7th grade. What does that tell you? Like, that's a different kind of kid because he was so advanced technically. He's really smart.
Sure.
Around him several times. They know that he's going to do well in front of the microphone. He's going to represent the school good, blah, blah, wherever he goes. He's what you're looking for. And if you get him, Auburn's perception within the SEC with recruiting will completely change.
Yeah, it changes how you talk about a program. No question. No question. If Auburn ultimately does not get Juju and the point of the offseason and the recruiting cycle hits to where it's, okay, we've got to pivot our efforts at quarterback. I mean, you and I think it happens a little after Big Cat. That's still where you are, right?
Yeah, if you don't, you have to at least be starting those conversations now, but to go all in on it, you go through that weekend because it's the off season.
Yeah.
You have to either flip somebody else or take a flyer on a kid. You need a quarterback in every class if you can.
Mm-hmm.
And it may change on what you do at the portal. You may start evaluating that too. Like there's all kinds of options, but you can't just suddenly be at the end of November like, oh, we're not going to get a quarterback. Let's go to – this is a long, drawn-out process, especially at the most important position in football.
Yeah, yeah. And like KJ Lacey's the name that's thrown around the most. That's probably the one where there's been like the most smoke. Then like there are other guys at Auburn called early in the process, like Deuce Knight, who's committed to Notre Dame. I think you've seen him a few times in person, Brian. Like, is that a guy that you pivot your efforts to? Because I mean, if you don't get Juju, like it does free up a lot of NIL that you had ready to spend in theory. And so does it give you the ability to go after a guy like that? I think that's interesting.
One of those guys would be good picks. They're honestly good fits for the offense because they're both mobile. Deuce is freakish athletic. He's over 42-inch vertical. Like he's a different athlete.
Yeah.
But I know that they've been talking with different quarterbacks, but there's a good chance that young man from Saraland could end up at Auburn if it's not Julian Lewis. So I don't know how this is going to shake out because the quarterback thing, that when one kid decommits, it changes everybody because you only take one kid. It is violent when one guy does or doesn't go to a school. So what Julian does will impact 20 schools. It's really crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. That's crazy to think about. Yeah, and there's a guy in Hawaii, but he's a 2026 guy that, his name's starting to pop up a good bit. But I'm just curious to see. I'm curious to see kind of what the trickle down effect of this will be if Auburn feels the need to kind of pivot all of their efforts away from Juju. I don't think they've given up. No question about it. They're still going to do everything that they can, but I think it's going to be interesting if some of these. If I'm Auburn, you've got to react to what USC is doing to you. It's like your options are either you react or you take it, and I just can't see Hugh Freeze taking it. Brian,
that's not his mentality at all.
I just can't see him taking it.
You and I have been around him enough. He's a great guy, but when you're standing back away and he's coaching, he's not warm and fuzzy there. Like he wants everything to be right. He gets on guys when he has to, and he loves them when he has to. Very smart guy.
Yeah,
he's going to find a plan. Now, I'm not saying I know what it is, but they're going to come up with something to give them this is why Auburn's best for you. This will go a couple more rounds, but Auburn, I'm not by any way, shape, or form saying, they're done, blah, blah, blah. Auburn is still in the race here. It's a long way to go. I just think that Big Cat Weekend is kind of when we'll have a better idea what's going on.
Yeah, it seems so far away, but yeah, I think you're right.
It's a month. It'll be a long month, though. There's no doubt. It'll be a long month.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so what's next for Auburn recruiting? What's next for Hugh Freeze? What's the next play here? We discuss in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Brian, it really is interesting. We were talking about this before we clicked record, but like nothing really happened, and the vibes around Auburn recruiting, they weren't great. They were not what they had been for like the previous month. And like nothing happened. There was just kind of a lot of rumor and hearsay. And then Carde Smith decommits, Arnaud, commits to Julian School. And so now it's okay. What's next? Because this all follows like a pretty big flip that happened this past Friday with Alvin Henderson flipping from Penn State to Auburn. And it just seems like the momentum gone.
About 24 hours of the Alvin stuff was, obviously positive. And then after that, it just went off a cliff. Mm-hmm. That's recruiting, though. This is what I tell every fan base, and fans don't like this, but it's true. There will always be valleys in recruiting. Even Georgia has kids decommit. If Kirby's losing kids, everybody's losing kids. That's just the nature of the beast. I would imagine that Auburn will get a couple more commits this summer. I don't know exactly who it will be, but there's several more guys that are on the board between now and like the 10th of July to make announcements. That's part of the nature of the beast. Mm-hmm. If Auburn doesn't get a commitment between now and Big Cat, I will be floored because everybody will. So they have to be picky, though. They're at 15 commits outside of Julian Lewis, a few offensive linemen, a few key guys like Fagans. He might commit here pretty soon. That's a key point. I think they'll get him. Mm-hmm. There's only a handful of guys that really, really want, like Jared Smith. That's a big name we're probably going to talk about a lot in the next month. Defensive lineman out of Alabaster, Alabama, just outside of Birmingham, plays at Thompson. Can't teach 6'6", 240 with size 18 shoes. Great kid, by the way. He's visited Auburn several times. He's rumored to be coming to Big Cat. That's a kid that's got offers from every school in the country. Yeah, you're still in a good spot for a lot of great guys. Now you got to get him back for Big Cat and finalize it. The next 3 weeks, setting that up is very important, even though most of that's behind the scenes.
Yeah. I don't know, just the efforts in state have been so good. You kind of hate what's happened around it. I'm with you, though. Fagans is going to be a big one, but his date is set. It's just so far in the future. It kind of makes you wonder if you're Auburn, like, do you kind of do what you're able to do to get a commitment? Like one of these guys that we think is committed, like, do you go ahead and put some pressure? Like, man, we need some positive vibes here. Help us out. Go ahead and commit.
No, that stuff is real. That's one of the reasons, like, certain kids will call within a 24-hour period saying, I'm ready. Coaches will space it out because they know other stuff can happen. You want to be consistently in the news with positive stuff all the time. I've talked to coaches about it. This is not a news flash here. You want to have positive momentum. Now the question is, which kid could they do that with? Plus, they have a couple other kids that might just pop. I mean, like if Andrew Babalola calls, you're going to take that commitment. So any of those kids want to pop, you just go right ahead and put out your social graphic. We'll happily send it to you. But I'm going to guess 2 more guys plus Fagans before the first game. I'll say 3 more commits for Auburn before now and the end of this.
In 25 or total?
25. The 26, there's 2 or 3 guys that could happen in 26 too. I put a lot of stock in them eventually getting the kids, we'll probably talk about here in a sec, but those kids change their dates all the time. J. Michael Garrett, they should get. He's out of, he's a program that I know well, Gulf Shores. Got Anthony Jones, who's a top 10 player nationally out of St. Paul's in Mobile, freakazoid. And then there's a Tootle kid, plays at Cottage Hill Christian down there in Mobile as well, elite player. All 3 of those could end up committing, and they're big-time players.
Hezekiah.
And I forget Hezekiah, too. He's from Jemison up in Huntsville. Another long, athletic kid. Auburn's the definitive leader. They should get all 4 of those guys as of right now. I mean, that's incredible start to your 26 class. I just don't know any specific dates for any of them. If they put them out, I haven't even paid attention. But
yeah,
they should get all 4. Again, all those kids are probably top 100 guys.
Yeah. I hate bringing up negative things, but I got to get your opinion on it. So Scroggins, who, you just mentioned like several edges. Scroggins seemed like it was a heavy Auburn lead. He was about to commit, goes to Miami, cancels his commitment date. He says he's pushing it back. And it sounds like it's all Miami at this point for Scroggins. You know the Miami program well and that beat. What are your thoughts on that recruitment?
One of my buddies that follows Miami literally stands outside their office all the time. He knows more than anything. His name's Gabby Uridia, and he's a great guy. And he immediately put in a Miami crystal ball. I didn't even message him. I'm like, that's all I need to know. Like, he knows everybody on that staff.
Yeah.
That is not a good sign for Auburn. So he talks to every kid that walks out the door.
Kind of makes you wonder, like, okay, what's the counterpunch to that then? Like, do they give Zion Grady a call back and say, okay, like
that might be a fence that they have to make. Like, Ohio State's hard to get a kid away from.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's freaking Ohio State.
The timing isn't good. The timing was not beneficial.
You see, this is the funny thing about recruiting. You just brought this up. If the Scroggins situation happens 7 days earlier, does that change what happens with Zion? Because they both took a visit out of state.
Yeah, could have.
The same weekend. If Grady had taken the Ohio State visit the week before, Auburn may have put more pressure on Scroggins to go ahead and commit.
Sure.
But they both visited out of state on the 21st. Both of them trended away.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of recruiting. Sometimes it's random.
Now, I don't want this to pop up on message boards or anything like that. It's like, oh my gosh, they're so negative on Locked on Auburn. I think Auburn is going to be fine from a recruiting standpoint. I know they've got plenty of time till December. They're not going to back off of Carde Smith. They're not going to back off of any of these guys. This staff has earned the respect and the trust of the Auburn fan base in that regard. So I still think Auburn has a shot of a top 10 class. They'll certainly be in the top 10 when it's all said and done. It's just the last 24 to 48 hours, things did not go well for Auburn on the recruiting front. But thankfully, it's the end of June, not the start of December.
Yeah, you have 5 months left, man.
Right.
Yeah. No, if Auburn shows well on the field, Big Cat goes as we expect, this will be a podcast you and I will joke about like December 15th after signing it. That's just how that works.
Yeah, maybe.
It goes like this, up and down.
Yeah, I mean, and still, like, somebody asked me on a radio hit yesterday, like, how has Auburn done? Like, how would you grade what Hugh Freeze has done so far at Auburn? It's like, obviously, like, the goal is year over year. This is how we track stuff, at Locked On as well. It's like year over year, are you in a better spot than you were a year ago? And if you're looking at that at Auburn's point of view, like, yeah, Auburn is in a much better spot now than they were a year ago. And I think a year from now, they'll be in an even better spot than they are now. So things are trending in the right direction. But just like I said, the last 24 hours, 48 hours, not ideal. Not ideal for Auburn. But I got a feeling something big's coming. So we'll see. We will see. We will see.
I hope.
Hope so too. Brian, how can people check out everything going on in your world?
auburndaily.com and at FBScout_Florida on X.
Yes. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll be back soon. This has been Locked on Auburn.